the network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
Ready.
AVWeek.
Performing scan.
Week.
Online.
This is AVWeek. AVWeek.
And welcome to another edition of AV Week. Hello, everybody. I'm your host, George Tucker, this week, and thanks for joining us for this episode. It's been a new year. Lots going on. CES 2016 is active. We'll have some more of that at the end of the show. But to talk about some of the new stuff happening this week, I am joined by two very cool guests. First off is the one, Adrian Boyd. He is from AVI Systems. Sir, good to see you again.
Good to see you too, George. I'm cool now. Oh, cool.
Yeah, you are very cool.
I guess turning 40 has its privileges.
Oh, wait till you get 50. It's all so much cooler.
Yeah, well.
I wouldn't know from experience, mind you, that I wouldn't at all. Yeah, well, moving on to a little bit of a younger set, although I think I'm far handsomer, is one Nicholas Piersons. He is from Prime AV Services, is also a former coworker of mine. How are you, sir?
I'm great, George. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Look forward to chatting about all the technology that's out there.
Yeah, no, and it's been a while since you and I have talked. I'm liking
Yes.
the beard, and in person, congratulations on becoming a father not so long ago.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
It's a whole different world, huh?
Well, we'll see if we can turn him into an AV geek, and if he'll, take the reins when I want to retire.
Yeah, but he'll never like your choice in music. Trust me on this. He'll never like your choice in music.
That's all right.
Yeah, it's just a sad fact of life. All right. Well, let's first talk about Mark Zuckerberg. Now, CES 2016 is happening, and this week Mark Zuckerberg let out a little message that his New Year's resolution is to create his own AI. He says that he wants to use existing technologies, not create something new. I guess just like hunting his own meat for a year and presenting it, that's what he wants to do. Here's my question, and Nick, I'm going to start with you on this. He seems to be ignoring that there already is a solution for doing what he wants. Is he right in this, or what?
I think anybody who's got the kind of resources and minds behind him that Mark Zuckerberg does, taking maybe a fresh look at it could be a good thing for all of us. At the same time, he could be spinning his wheels. This industry's been trying to do an AI type thing for 2 decades now, where I think it was Bill Gates. You could wear a pin walking into his house, and the rooms would change music and temperatures and lighting based on your personal preferences. I mean, that is a sort of AI. So there's two sides to it. He could find something new, or a better way to do it for all of us, or he could just be spinning his wheels and make people think that AI is never going to happen for the home.
Yeah, I mean, Bill Gates did this. Everybody's had their home of the future kind of stuff. But,
right.
Zuckerberg, to me, feels like he's someone who should know that there's other stuff out there. Adrian, is this part of our problem that someone like him doesn't even know, or do you think he's deliberately ignoring it?
That's a good question. I think it's probably a little bit of both. I mean, we have a lot of these different disparate technologies. You could cite Nest or Philips Hue, which have an AI element to them. They're supposed to learn. Yeah, they're supposed to learn how you are and adapt to whatever you're doing in your home. Some of them are hit or miss. I mean, we've certainly read recently just how a lot of these systems kind of fail, and a lot of it comes down to just the programming. I mean, software is written by people, and people are fallible at times. So I don't know exactly what he wants. What's his real goal at the end? Because he kind of put this out. He wants to use essentially existing over-the-counter types of technology and make them all fit. And we've all done this before, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And usually when it doesn't, it's because we're hitting the limitations of what the technology can do, or just us as programmers.
Well, Nick, I'm gonna harken back to our days at the behemoth that is Crestron, and we were seeing some of this kind of stuff working way back 10 years ago, maybe even 8 years ago. That voice recognition's tough. You have to take in all kinds of factors, right? Of accent and dialect and how you enunciate. And then many times it's sort of like the old palm graffiti. You have to sort of teach it how you speak in order to gain knowledge of it. But we've been seeing this already. Is this because the big boys in our industry are not promoting what they can do or not confident in it? Or do we just think there's not really a demand besides the futuristic wants of a billionaire?
Personally, in the way I interact with my home, and my home is full of Crestron. Like, everything is connected. I don't think many people, after the cool factor wears off, they really want to talk to their home. Someone wants to come in, sit down, watch TV. You don't want to tell it what channel to go to. You want to pick up the remote and just do it, because you're usually either not wanting to interact with anything else, or you're half in the middle of something else and you don't want to interrupt your conversation, your thoughts, to speak to your television. For the car, I think voice technology is great because it keeps you focused on what you should be doing, driving. In the home, I've offered it to some customers. No one seems that incredibly interested in it, and I think that's also just one part of AI, is the ability to talk to it. Can it understand what you're saying? Can it differentiate between someone with upstate New York bit of accent where they're very hard on their A's, and someone in Boston who can't pronounce their doesn't really pronounce their R's much into certain words. You gotta figure that part out. So we did see it at Crestron. Crestron has it built into their touch panels using Android. I believe it's Android's software in the background for the voice stuff, but I haven't had one single customer ask to use it, and I think a part of it is people. I don't think people really want to talk to their systems in the long run. It's a cool factor for sure, but it's kind of like 3D. 3D is cool for the first 10 minutes, and then you get a headache, and you put the glasses aside and watch your regular TV program.
It might be even said for what's hot at CES now, the AR, as they're calling it these days. I wear those for a while, and you're kind of dizzy. But Adrian, what this actually touches on, and what Nick was talking about, is people want to have, well, essentially what they're asking for is intuitive control, and I guess that's what Mr. Zuckerberg's looking for at times, is this idea to understand that when I'm in the house and I've set my tuchus on the couch, I want the TV to go on, or for me, it's like I want the music to go on so I can just sit there and relax and let my mind sort of come at ease from the day. There's a story in the New York Times that's related to this called Looking Beyond the Internet. And it talks about basically big data. There's a gentleman who worked for Google and has worked for Microsoft and is now working with Salesforce and those guys. If you don't know what Salesforce is, it's sort of an intuitive intranet and business salesman relationship, social media kind of thing. Think of Yammer, think of Slack, but for business. And he talks a lot about big data and sensors everywhere. Do you think that this is what we're really looking for in the client base, or is there really more problems here than we're willing to solve at the moment?
Essentially, a lot of what he's talking about in this article is essentially data brokering. When we look at Salesforce is a web-based CRM environment, and you put all your data in, and you pay a subscription fee, and you get all your data out, and it kind of guides you along with most CRM systems. When we talk about the Internet of Things, it's devices that are constantly talking between themselves all the time, and I guess when we say intuitive environments, for instance, I've got a Hue system. I just got that. That was my little Christmas present, and it's got geofencing. It knows when I leave the house. It knows when I come back, and it will turn on lights appropriately based on when my phone enters the network, my home network. So in terms of intuition, I think a lot of people are looking at that kind of how that's going to work. When I come home, certain things happen, but that has to be generated by some sort of device. And so when we look at the Internet of Things, it's all these other little devices that are talking to each other. So say, for instance, I walk into my home, but I have a smart doorknob, or a smart garage door opener, that when my car pulls in and the garage door pops, opens up and the car goes in, automatically things in the home start triggering over, temperature, lighting, the TV can be turned on, the music can be turned on, all those things start happening. And that's what he's alluding to is all of these interconnected devices. You enter the data into the system, they go out to the cloud, they know these are the preferences for this person, they could follow you everywhere. If you had environments that, hotels are looking at a lot of this, especially like the Marriotts and the Westin and so on, is having these, especially for guests who are, there all the time, that when I put my key card into the room, either I have an app on my phone or I have something that's registered to my key card, that the room is automatically configured to the way I'd like it. And that's what I think a lot of what Mark Zuckerberg and even this Beyond the Internet article is kind of getting at is when we start putting this data in the cloud, or we start carrying this information with me, and as long as all these devices are playing in the same sandbox, when I go to a place, things happen. Now what happens is if I've got all this for myself, what happens when I go to an environment where everybody else is set up the same way? Do my settings override everybody else's?
Well, isn't that sort of like the chairman's effect? You walk into a boardroom and the mic, basically when the chairman speaks, everybody else is muted.
Pretty much, yes.
And there's some logic to that. I mean, in a home, you're right. Whose choice is it? Is it your patriarchal, matriarchal, or is it sort of a mixture based on different technologies? And it sort of brings me to that sensor data thing again. One, do we want that much data? And two, Nick, I'll throw this to you. We really had a struggle converting control system people over to Ethernet and sort of cloud services these days. It's a whole different sort of structure, and understanding and maintaining all that data. Are we as an industry, or at least as installers and integrators, ready to be those people? Or are we going to be winding up subcontracting that out to people who could possibly take it over again from us?
I think, we've gotten better at it, because the internet has become, and Ethernet control and networking has become such a big part of what we do now. 15 years ago, when Crestron was starting to push, their e-control and stuff, it was a really new thing for a lot of AV guys who were used to IR bugs, RS-232, and contact closures. Now, 15 years later, 2016, every home, every home I do, and I'm sure every home a lot of other dealers do, they're all connected. We have to set up the Wi-Fi because everybody's using at least an iPad or an iPhone or an Android device to control some part of their system. So I think the industry is closer to being able to handle that kind of stuff. And I also think that the networking industry has made these things a little easier for us to integrate with. But there's still a long way to go, and I don't think most AV integrators really want to be those IT managers managing cloud data, NAS's, software, stuff like that. Just like AV integrators don't want to be an electrician. We bring electricians in, even though we're integrating lighting systems and HVAC systems. We still want to have the experts for those systems to be on hand and not necessarily employ all of those people under one roof. So I think the industry is helping us. The IT industry is helping us, making cloud access to cloud and network infrastructure easier to configure for us. But I think we're always going to need to have, just like they need us, we're going to need them. Because your electrician's not going to be the expert at integrating all this stuff.
Yeah, Adrian, let me throw part of this question to you, because Nick makes a good point that we have a good base and that we will, as an industry, learn. But there is a threat here that we don't know, and there were some serious troubles for 8, 9, almost 10 years ago, in which many companies moved over to being fully complementary to Ethernet and wireless systems, and it caused terrible problems, longer installs and lots of tech support calls. Let me ask you this question. It's sort of two-sided for you. Do you feel that you are ready to handle that kind of input data sensing management and client-facing information? Or if not, where would you like that help to come from? And how are we going to get there?
I mean, a lot of AV companies are starting to do this in terms of managed services, where it's generally specific to the install. So it could be digital signage, it could be portions of the control system, IPTV related environments. So it is happening now. I think the bigger question we have to ask ourselves is when you start looking at the security and you start looking at the legality of who has that data and how do you protect it, and is it sensitive data? If you're a homeowner and you have say a connected home and you have all of these devices talking, well, now you have things like fire safety, you have health information. Well, if you're putting that in the cloud, who protects that? Who keeps that safe? And as integrators, I think a lot of this is, yes, we'll have managed services, but there will be some portions of it that's going to be offloaded to a third party, because you really don't want to deal with, some of those legal things, those headaches. And you look at a lot of companies that, they're now buying IT, AV companies buying IT firms or buying managed, firms, managed services firms, because it's like, well, we know we don't know everything. We need to bring somebody on board who knows a little bit more than we do. And a lot of AV companies are looking at that ground, because, hey, boxes don't make money anymore, but services do. So I think very seriously, a lot of AV companies are going to start becoming involved in this managed service approach, or partnering with other firms to bring that to their end users.
It's a very interesting question then, because I'm not sure we're really ready yet, and it makes me wonder, based on the conversation we just had previously of, are my clients asking for something, and are they looking where they shouldn't be? And I don't mean that in you're wrong to go to the sort of mixed apps and decentralized configurations of controlling your home. But it does lead me to a question of an article of a gentleman named Fred Wilson. He writes a blog called AVC. He is one of the primary people at Union Square, what do they call them, venture capitalism. Right? These guys are behind Tumblr and, Twitter. They were early backers of many stuff, including, a couple of streaming services. I'm losing myself here because there's so much he's done. But he asked the question, is it content or the packaging? And this is a very serious sort of question, not just for the new media, new apps guys, but for our industry. Are we doing an effective enough job communicating to the CES participants and those who watch it of the world that we're not an exclusionary or exclusive industry? Yes, there's a luxury side of it, but how do we do more to understand and get these people, get our clients to understand what we are actually doing, and that it is actually beneficial and better? Nick, I'll throw this to you. You're on the floor with doing this every day. What are you doing to sort of have that interface, the client saying, no, this is why you want to go centralized. This is why you want this.
A lot of what I bring it back to is ease of access to things like content. Also, saying you have a green home doesn't quite have the draw that it used to, but when you tell someone, by automating a bunch of these things, we can save you money. And in that sense, a green home, becomes very appealing to people, because it doesn't matter how rich you are, saving yourself money while still having convenience is always a great opportunity and something you want. So that's how when I approach my customers, I kind of put it out there. There are certain things, video switchers aren't as necessary anymore when you have the cloud-based services of Fios and Time Warner and DirecTV with their Genie services, where it's one box recording everything and everybody has access to it. But they still need a simple way to turn these systems on. no one wants to pick up 2 or 3 remotes to control their TV, their Apple TV, their receiver should they have one. So it's still an integrated, integrating these things to have access to this content.
Well,
Because
can I stop you there for 1 second, because you raise a good question, and I just want to bring it up. We've long fought the idea that people don't want to use their phone or iPad because to get to control the TV, you have to open the app and then get to it and then go to that screen, but they're doing it. So are we sort of missing the packaging of guys? There's a seamlessness here that will make your life not just more efficient, but better.
See, now, my approach when I talk to customers and I design these systems is when it comes to interfaces is 2. To watch TV, I want my customers, unless they really want to use something like an iPad, I give my customers a handheld remote, because channel surfing, let's be honest, anybody who sits down on a couch does not want to pick up their iPad or iPhone and have to look for the channel button every time they press it. Even with haptic feedback, you still can't physically feel where that channel up-down button is on your on a flat interface like a tablet or a phone. So in that regard, a handheld remote is great. When it comes to the bigger things like controlling music and using integrated services like streaming services like Spotify, Pandora, controlling large lighting scenes, stuff like that. That's when the interface like an iPad or an iPhone becomes very, very useful, because a handheld remote with hard buttons, which is awesome for channel surfing, bringing up the guide, is great because it's fairly mindless once you get used to it. Something like trying to control music and set up playlists, choosing streaming music stations, is not on those remotes. It's not the days of I have 6 presets, FM presets, 6 AM presets, and I can very easily get to them. People don't use their music services that way anymore. Everybody's using Pandora, Spotify, SiriusXM, and those interfaces do not really have those hard 1 through 6 buttons that you always know what you're getting, and people don't want to interface with their music that way anymore.
Adrian, let me pose that back to you then. I'm trying to find a way that, Nick makes some good points, is that it is about the design and about the feature set that you're providing them that can be fine-tuned to the client's needs and wants. But are we missing, as an industry, a way of packaging, say, Infocom or even CEDIA more like CES, or is that a mistake on my part to think that we should do that?
Well, Infocom and CEDIA have always kind of been, industry trade shows where the end user does not come in, where CES generally has probably a lot more end users involved in that shape or form. I'm not exactly sure how we, if you'd want to have an end user showing up, unless you invited them personally to those shows, because I think looking at a lot of what we present at these shows would be like a, if you think CES is crazy, wait till you go to one of ours, because CES is like the catch-all. It has everything. It has mobile devices. It has hoverboards. It just gets, it has everything, refrigerators to stoves.
Yeah. Let me ask you this though, and I don't mean to misdirect it, and I didn't intend to say we would invite end users to it, although we know that CDS often has that sort of very high-end client come in with his dealer. But I'm more about the excitement of how they present stuff. We try our best. The trades try their best. But is something missing from, say, Infocom or even ISE and CEDIA to say, this is wow, this is POW, this is, what technology is the cutting edge of? Or really, are you right? Does it have to still just be more private and insular?
Okay. I mean, there's certainly, CES in terms of media coverage, in when we talk general media coverage, goes crazy. I don't think I've ever walked into a New York Times reporter at Infocom. I imagine they're there, but I don't really think they really show up. Whereas CES has got everybody from popular mechanics, popular science, to every blog under the sun and every major newspaper, plus all the major television content providers, your ABCs, your NBCs, and so on. They generally show up to CES. If we wanted to have that kind of excitement, we'd have to have a press complement similar to that. I would imagine we have certainly our trade association. We have AVNation. We do press coverage. But if you really wanted to have that wow factor and have everybody going, hey, check out this trade show and see all the crazy stuff at the video walls, and you'd have to have that type of buy-in, I guess, from your major media partners.
But, it's interesting because
we usually do it.
Twit, right? Twit.tv. I know that there's a guy that does a home stereo show on there. He shows up to these shows. He does CD. He does Infocom. Because he likes to cover some of the pro EV aspects of it. But I suppose this actually brings me to the next story, in which, from Sound and Vision magazine, a lengthy article about let's be better AV enthusiasts this year. Now, the premise of this article is that, as you can see from the very first headline, being a snob doesn't make you superior. He goes off to talk about how the old guys have to stop saying it was done better and faster in our days, and the young kids have to stop discrediting what happened before, and we need to regain our enthusiasm as a group for AV. We've lost it because the iPad, the MP3, just offline, Nick and I were talking about some of his streaming services and the bit rates that he was getting new stuff at, and the fact that he got a new turntable and bought 4 new albums to sort of test it out, some old, some new. And he's really excited to do that. So, Nick, I'm going to start with you then, since we had this conversation. Is it as simple as buying the turntable and getting into the new grooves and being inspired, or what other factors missing, that tangible thing to say, man, I am excited about this, and even if it's more of the same, this is really cool?
I think right now for our industry, why people aren't as excited for the past couple of years is there isn't any wow technology right now. And to speak to what you said previously, what Adrian was saying previously about the trade shows, we rely on really for the cool wow factor to get people excited about. We rely on the manufacturers to do it. I mean, let's be honest. The new gaming system comes out. It's Microsoft and PlayStation 4 that are getting people excited about it through their through commercials, through the media outlets, things like Cedia and Infocom. Those companies, which are billion-dollar companies, they don't have that outreach. They're not putting those commercials out there. And I think part of it, on the other side of it, being excited and being an enthusiast is, I feel like we're a little bit in a lull of the wow factor. The big wow factor before, 10 years ago, 1080p, Blu-ray, tablet device, then it was tablet devices. So, 4K isn't making as big of a splash as I'd hope. I think, the resolution is exciting, but people aren't really pushing it yet. So, I think part of it is every 5 to 10 years we have a big new type of technology that comes out that will get people really excited about what we're doing. And in the interim, exposing people to the cool little things, the cool behind-the-scenes stuff that still makes our industry exciting. The resurgence of vinyl. I mean, this is my first record player I ever owned. I was a cassette kid, really, growing up, and I've gone through every single medium since then, buying and throwing away the old stuff. It was my experience with listening to an album on a record player that was like, you know what? I want to buy a record player and listen to some records and get that experience that people had, in the 70s that was really popular. I think if we expose other people, our clients, our kids, our friends, to some of those other things like high-definition music, or sitting down and listening to 2-channel stereo of the high-definition music and vinyl, that kind of has disappeared because it's all about surround sound and giant subwoofers. But there's still something to be said for an awesome pair of bookshelf or floor-standing speakers and listening to your favorite album. I mean, albums are mixed now by great artists better than ever before, but everybody's bombarded by pop top 40 of auto-tune and all that. So I think a big part of it is those of us that are enthusiasts have to get others to experience it, to bring them in as enthusiasts and get them to see, how things change and that it's okay to go back and take a look at the older stuff and enjoy it.
Adrian, Nick brings up some good points that the experience itself helps bring it, and sometimes our business doesn't always have the most exciting, at least viscerally on the very first touch of it, technology, because we're not selling the newest iPad, but we are selling 802.11 AC, which is actually very cool stuff. But Nick also brought up a point that we rely on the manufacturers for some of this, and while these shows can be exciting, is there something more the manufacturers can do to excite us, the user base, the ones who install it and purchase it, or am I pipe dreaming?
Well, I mean, I don't think anytime soon we're going to start seeing, Epson having commercials for their brand new projector, splashed across television. I think when we look at the products that get us excited, there are some. There's not a lot. I mean, a lot of what we do technology-wise, it's I see a lot of manufacturers that somebody comes out with HD-based. We all know what it is. We all know how it works. But pretty much every manufacturer has a "yeah, me too" product. Yes, we can do it over twisted pair. Okay, great. Why should I, design my system with your box over someone else's? What are you bringing to the table that's new and different than just I can send a signal over twisted pair? That's kind of, when I read this article, I got a lot. How I looked at it a lot of is and I've been talking with a couple of others, is that there seems to be a glut right now of new blood in the AV industry, in terms of kids coming out of high school, kids coming out of college, getting in and understanding that, hey, this is a viable career. And right now, there's a lot of people my age and older and people in their mid-20s and 30s and so on. That's our industry. We don't have these, the fresh blood coming in and going, wow, this is cool, I really like this. And we're kind of like, oh, great, it's another projector. Oh, gee, it's another flat panel. It's the same thing every year in terms of technology coming out. I mean, we all got excited when, hey, cool, we can do, AVWeek came out and everybody got really excited because, oh, wow, we can do audio over the network. Well, it didn't really come out the way that we want it to be, and it's kind of fizzled, and hopefully it'll regain. But that's kind of a lot of what we're seeing. At least it's been the last 5-6 years. It's the same technology. It's just repackaged and regurgitated by another manufacturer going, ooh, look, new shiny box. And when you look at it going, hey, it's just like the last shiny box.
Well, I mean, there is a danger of it being box upon box. I get that, and the fatigue, I guess, of it's the same thing. We don't have the shootouts anymore. We don't have that stuff. It's interesting because Tom LeBlanc of Commercial Integrator wrote about why we don't have as many young people in the industry, and that's a debate for another day on its entirely. But there seems to be an excitement level of, what we do is actually. It is actually exciting because we're creating, especially when you talk about something that you do or that Nick puts in. These are really fabulous and fantastically engineered home theater or media room systems that just blow you away. And
oh yeah, sure. When we get that opportunity to do those cool systems, it's like, oh wow, like when you get the opportunity to design an environment that's making different technologies talk and to integrate different things, either from a building standpoint or a home standpoint, or even when a client comes to you with an off-the-wall idea and you have to think about it and go, is that really possible? And you do the research and you get the project to that sell point. That's exciting. But a lot of times that doesn't happen. A lot of it is the same kind of thing. I want a TV hung on the wall, or I want a huddle room, or it's kind of, I hate to say cookie cutter AV, but it does feel like that sometimes. That for every crazy customer that has a crazy idea, there's probably a lot more mundane clients that go, we just want to hook our laptop up to this flat panel we bought at Costco.
Yeah, it's the bread and butter. Nick, you were going to inject.
No, I was just going to agree with Adrian that, the majority of the systems that, I do, and I'm sure Adrian does, is, TV on the wall, HDMI connected, ease of operation, You know, and it's the same thing over and over again. You know, the house is different, the conference room is different, but it's still almost all the same stuff. It is the, like he was saying, the cool factor of the customer comes to you with something a little off the wall. And, you know, to me, finishing a house and getting, you know, the customer to see how cool it is that they can do a couple button presses. You know, one button press does all of this, and one button press does all of that. You know, that's where some of the excitement for me still comes in, is, you know, showing the customer, wow, they pay, you know, they invested a lot, but look at all these systems that are so simple to use now, that I think kind of makes it worth it. But, you know, the day-to-day, let's be honest, I think day-to-day in this industry, most of us integrators are banging our head against the wall at least once a day, trying to put what are supposed to be simple systems together. And it's, you know, it's the same thing over and over again. HD, you know, as Adrian was saying, HD-based T, you know, everybody's got a box. One box works better than another, and you're banging your head against the wall as to why this one works better than the other. And that's, you know, that's the day-to-day of things. You know, IR driver doesn't work. The TV picture isn't as clear on this one, so on and so forth. But it's the cool projects that kind of bring, I think, us integrators back and saying, let's keep going.
Yeah, very interesting. Well, we've almost run out of time for this episode of AV Week, but speaking of enthusiasm and stuff like that, we do have a segment live from CES. Dave Danto sat down with me a little earlier, and we discussed what he saw at CES and what he's teasing about his next Connected show, which will probably broadcast next week. So here, take a look at this short clip and interview with. So we're lucky enough to have David Danto joining us live from CES 2016 out there in Las Vegas. He is reporting on this for us and some others. He is the host of the Connected show on AVNation. We're glad to have him with us. Dave, how are you? You're up pretty early.
Yeah, well, whenever I travel on the West, I always stay on East Coast time so I can get the morning in for New York morning meetings and East Coast morning meetings, and then the day over here. It's actually a lot of fun, gets a lot of work done. It's really harder when you go into Asia, when you have to stay up all night to do work and then go and leave and do work. So it's here, it's just an extra 3 hours.
Yeah, exactly. So you have now in day 3, I believe it is, of the exhibits being open, but day 5, including the pre-press stuff, right?
Exactly. Yeah, most of the action takes place before the show even opens, where we get the private preferences and you see what the manufacturers are doing. The days when the expo floor opens, you want to visit companies that you haven't heard and make finds. And believe me, there have been quite a few of them this year that I'll be sharing on the Connected show. We should have that edited and ready for you, but certainly can talk to you about themes, what's going on the show, and give you a teaser of some cool products that I have here.
Well, okay, so speaking of teasers, you've been putting out some videos during the week, which we've been putting onto social media. But let's talk about some of the sort of more dramatic things you've seen while there. Let's talk about, it's not just AV. What else have you seen?
You know, it's interesting when you think about theme sessions that come here out of CES. One of the big ones a couple of years ago, many years ago, we were talking about everything needed to be flat, wanted flat screens. And then 2 years ago, it was curved. Curved is the new flat. And we're about shapes and aesthetics and not necessarily quality. This year, it's cylinders. Starting with the Amazon Echo, copying this round cylindrical thing that's going to be your home hub and your home central point, and everything's starting to take shape, which is really an interesting thing to look at. You know, as form factors are concerned, it's a trend that is going to start following, and I'll have examples of some of that. The Internet of Things, you know, what I cover on Connected is exploding out here. You know, every other product has an IoT angle or talks about IoT. Means little things and big things. I don't know if you guys remember the old Woody Allen routine where, you know, he talked to his elevator, and, you know, that's real right now, where, you know, your refrigerator is going to start telling your phone that it's out of milk. By using cameras, you're going to be able to go to your smartphone and look at the camera in your refrigerator and see what you're missing so that you can go shopping, and it'll create a shopping list for you. Or some mesh technology specifically around Bluetooth, where if you're working in your kitchen light bulb tells your garage light bulb, he's in the kitchen now, you can shut off the light in the garage, and all this happens without you having to enter instructions. And so you have those little things in the smart home, all the way up to the big things. I saw a great demonstration in video that I'll be sharing from Panasonic that talks about you know, airplanes are now communicating with each other in real time automatically. No more just voice control through satellites. So you know exactly second what's going on with weather and with turbulence. You can, the Disney park doesn't need to close because there's a hurricane coming, or hurricane's a bad example, a thunderstorm coming sometime this morning. That thunderstorm will be on you in 4.5 minutes or in 9.5 minutes, and people can react with that data. I mean, this also goes to smart cities, where traffic lights will all be at about 20%. City lights will all be at about a 20% brightness, and then as you walk under it, not only does it become 80 or 90% brightness, but it tells the next one in the direction you're walking, you guys brighter. And you keep walking, and then it dims as you pass. So all of the internet mesh, the Internet of Things, are going to help both in smart cities and in your home.
It's what I've always wanted. I've talked several times about how I would love in a facility to have that, what I was calling RFID chips, but now the IoT gives you the opportunities, that speed, direction, and knowledge of where you're going. I call it this sort of Heisenberg control. It knows all.
Yep.
So
exactly.
How much effect do you think has had with Zuckerberg announcing he wants to develop his own AI? Is that a buzz at CES at all, or is it just noise?
Well, a lot of robots here, and robots were fancy 2 years ago. Now they're sort of just expected. Not, anthropomorphic robots. It's not humans. There are a few of those, but there are bartenders that'll get you drink based on what they're pan tilt systems like the Kubi from Revolve Robotics. There are a number of things where you're starting to see. The whole idea is the sensors mixed with the technology, mixed with intelligence. So it's no longer just the sensor reporting to you and letting you take action. It's the sensor figuring out what to do and actually doing it the way you would want it done. I mean, we're all now talking about the concept that vehicles or self-driving cars. We're not even talking about will they come. We're already past that. We're talking about how you're going to be able to sync your music with them. So, I mean, I think it's a little bit of fantasy speak, which happened since the big automakers come out here, but they're all talking about the autonomous vehicles as if they're inevitable, and that's another that AI, where it's going to do everything for you.
So is there anything that we haven't heard of yet that's a buzz, something dramatic, or is it building upon the same stuff?
Well, the stuff that you've heard about with buzz at a high level, I think mostly has caught the themes. CES gets a great deal of coverage, 150,000 attendees looking at what's going on. What I like to do at the show is I like to catch the trends that are not necessarily being reported. One I can talk to, I can show you. What's really interesting, and I was really taken aback and surprised, is the records are back. Apparently there's this cult that's no longer a cult anymore. It's a huge group of people that audio is more pure when you're scratching needle grooves into a record. You have Sony, you had Audio Technica, and you had Panasonic release Panasonic re-released their Technium this year with vinyl record turntables. The Audio Technica one's really interesting because think about it, it's a steereless turntable in that you put your record on it, you put the needle on the record, and then it goes Bluetooth speakers. You don't, there are no more stereos, you don't need anything else like that. So I think that that's something that's interesting to see that manufacturers are responding to. Another thing that we're seeing, and this is a great product that I found at the show and spoke to its founders, and I'll take it out. This is called Chat Light, if you can see it. Definitely a product that's needed that nobody thought of, and it's a simple little LED array of light, colors to make it look good. It's got this great little actuating clamp, so it can clamp right onto your PC or anything else like this. And this is going to, my camera's going to auto adjust. This is going to be dramatic, but look at the difference in lighting. Add some lights in over there. That's the high brightness. I'll put it on low brightness, and all of a sudden, once the camera adjusts, you start to get a natural color picture. I'm going to turn off the room light that had been on, and you can start to see what you can do. Obviously, I should really have two of them here. This is a $30 product, thing that you can and make, put on your machines. Now, all of a sudden, everybody who's got Skype for Business or Link or Jabber or any one of the other desktop platforms, Google Hangouts, you put one or two of these on your machine to the USB port, and whammo, all of a sudden you've got TV studio quality lighting, and it works on a battery, power battery, if you don't keep it plugged in.
It's the poor man's Kel-Lite, huh?
It was an awesome product. There's no need for it. I've been using a task lamp behind my computer and my desktop video conferencing at home. Lights that are actually made for it. Another change, which I don't want to trend, but it's an interesting way of looking. I'm a big fan of battery cases. I have one over here from iPhone 5, and I'm saying goodbye to my iPhone 5 this year. As soon as I get home, the 6 is waiting for me. But you snap on the case, it protects your phone, and it also gives you a charge. You're seeing less and less people using those because the batteries are getting better, but people still need to charge. People still need some extra stuff. So it's products like these, a lot of them from a lot of companies. This is from a company called Ventev. I don't know if you see, I'm holding it up. You can see the name of the company's logo. But this little device, hugely powerful. It has these two little wires in it. One's Lightning, one's micro USB. Comes right out of it, hangs on the wall. You don't need to bring a charger. You can use it to charge your phone. It's a little battery meter. It'll show you how much is left in there. It's got a high power USB port output. All stick it in your travel bag, and instead of carrying one of those extra batteries, just when you put your phone down, you keep charge. I'm seeing a lot of smart, and I don't mean smart like internet connected, but intelligent products like this, little things that make your life easier, that kind of go in under the radar of all the big themes at the show.
A few years ago, the big theme was headphones, headphones, headphones. You mentioned vinyl. That seems to be the big thing. Is there any little product that you've seen that seems to become ubiquitous, that sort of low-lying, low-priced item that everybody wants a part of, or is it now sort of flattened out?
Last year, I was surprised. Last year, this was the popularity of Beats and all the other ones. Everybody had these big phones that go over the head. Some were excellent. Like Plantronics Backbeat, Backbeat Pro version out right now. So instead of using this for this call, I could put that on, and it has a USB dongle. Really great USB dongle now, has light up indicators and awesome stuff. But instead of seeing all those big headphones at the show this year, everybody's got earbuds. Everybody's got their version of the hang it in the ear. Some are active canceling, some are passive, just noise blocking. I'll show some video from a Audio Science, I believe, and if I got that wrong, I apologize. They've created a system that creates a perfect laser image of the inside and the outside of your ear. Scan you with this. And then you take that scan and image, once cleaned up a little bit, over to a 3D printer and 3D print custom earbuds that fit inside your ear canal. I'm a broadcaster, and based on my history, what we used to have to do is get the anchor on the set and mix up this little wax, crochet-type mold, pour it in his ear, and make him sit there for 15 minutes while it forms, and then ship that out to a really good company in Wisconsin that would then make their custom IFBs for the show. Instead of doing all that garbage now, you sensor that looks like you're taking somebody's ear temperature. And Whammo 3D printer, you've cut rid of that whole part. Artists are using this for stage monitoring, for stage IFB, custom earpieces. You can get it in whatever you want, whatever finish you want. I got my fitting yesterday, and I'll show everybody how that process worked. And I'm hoping I'm going to get my custom high-tech earbuds in the mail.
Very interesting. Yeah, I like that idea. And I know I had one made for me many, many years ago when I first started doing stage work, because we needed to be quiet. But yeah, it was a tedious process. It sort of reminded me of like versus fiber, when you had to do fiber in a long way. Now you don't. Cool. Well, you know what? I want to thank you very much for giving us some of your time. You've got a lot to write up and a lot to do. We look forward to seeing the Connected Show next week, which will cover this and much more in detail.
My pleasure. Greetings from Las Vegas. Hopefully I'll leave here with my voice intact.
There you go. Thank you very much, David. That is David Danto, host of Connected. We'll look for it next week.
Gentlemen, I want to thank you very much for being on this episode. Nick, your first time here. Tell us a little bit more about yourself and Prime.
This is a company I started myself about 6 years ago. Been doing this 17 years. Started in Boston, Massachusetts, for a company that unfortunately is now defunct. I've worked for Crestron, which is where you and I worked together for several years. Ran a New York City company for about 4 years, and then did Prime AV Services, and we basically specialize in integrating AV, lighting, HVAC, security cameras, those kinds of systems in high-end homes and some commercial spaces.
Where can they find more information about your company?
Easiest place to go is www.primeavservices.com. You can reach out to us through our webpage. All the numbers are there. You can see some of the products we carry and what we specialize in.
Cool, thank you. And Adrian, we know you well, but where can they reach you, hear more about you and the stuff you're doing?
You want to see me? I'm on Twitter. I mean, I'm the _AV_CAD_guy on Twitter. I'm also the head engineer in the St. Louis office for AVI Systems, and AVI's got offices all over the country. And I think now we're like the third largest integrator.
Oh, wow.
With some other people thrown in there that are number 1 and 2, but yeah, I'm on LinkedIn and Twitter and probably Google Plus somewhere. But yeah, type in my name, or you'll either find a football player or you'll find me.
There you go. All right, and especially I want to thank you, the viewers, and our underwriters for supporting us and watching the shows. If you're interested in those people who are helping us keep this mighty ship of AVNation afloat, please go to our webpage, avnation.tv, and look at our underwriters page. They're a fine bunch of companies and a fine bunch of people. You should check them out and thank them for supporting AVNation. You can find shows like this and many more in the AV integration industry at avnation.tv. You'll be seeing next week, of course, Connected, I said, with David Danto on the IoT influence in our industry. Lightcast is coming out with a new episode about architectural lighting and more, with a very interesting guest that does archaeological lighting research, which is very interesting stuff. There'll be new AV apps coming out and more. So again, avnation.tv. Thank you for joining us, and we all look forward to speaking with you again very soon.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
This is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AV Nation.